Hello, hello, welcome back. I'm John, an old YouTuber. It's Thursday today. I have paid all my bills yesterday, Wednesday. It's Thursday the 2nd. Thursday the 2nd. Let's put some heating back on and close my doors. So, but because of this war, Russia did attack, got a little bit, have to clean the lens a bit. We can wait to do that. It's 10 a.m. soon. No, because of the war in Ukraine, they talk about a lot of tanks. This Leopard 2 tank, this German and this American Abrams M1 Abrams tanks, Leopard 2 tanks. That's the T-84 they're using in Ukraine. So we're going to read about tanks and history of the tanks in World War I. So I have 2 pages and I have all this PDF. That's German tanks in the Second World War. And that's American tanks in the Second World War. That's Russian tanks, more German tanks, Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler. That's a little bit about the moped and bicycles. So I will start to do this. I have it here. And we have to read this. Now we have to read about this war in Ukraine. 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine, but that's just 70 pages. So we have to read about that too one day. And I think I could read about World War I, World War II, the Spanish Civil War, and I could read about NATO and Cold War. So that will take a whole month to do that. Let's put the heating back on. It's still winter, it's February. But I pay all my bills yesterday, so everyone that need to have money from me, they can see from today they got the money. I've just eat a little bit food, so I've been shopping food 3 times, so I have food for the whole month. Tomatoes, and I have a lot of food in my bread and stuff in my deep freeze. I'm going to make this big pork chops. I will make on Saturday in 2 days. A lot of bread there, more bread there, toast bread. Let's put the heating back on. And got more juice, more cheap juice, and 1 spare cola. The heating is on there. And I did buy some cheap sneakers to like $32, 229 Danish kroner. That's like it's $32, something like that. And heating on there. So I need to close my door. And I did buy a bit underwear, 3 pairs of underwear. 59, and heating is on there, so let's close the door. Door to my balcony. So tomorrow is Friday tomorrow. I have a Danish video I need to put public. Yes, that's my new cell phone. I have put down it with some tissues. So if I by accident dropping some juice, I have some tissues there. But I keep my cell phones there. So let's read about tanks. What is a tank? We have to keep the screen open to my camcorder, and I lower the speakers to 50. So I need a minute to do myself ready in my bed. Just got up my bed like 1 hour ago. Now we go to bed again. So I read about all this because I like to read it myself. So I have to check my cell phone one more time. Nothing there. So let's start, but that will take a whole month to read about tanks, I think. Read loud, read to end of documents.
Tank. The first tank to engage in battle, the British Marker tank, pictured in 1916, with the Solomon camouflage scheme, a British Sherman tank in Italy during World War II. An M4 Sherman tank in Italy in 1943 during Wehr tank is an armored fighting vehicle intended as a primary offensive weapon in frontline ground combat. Tank designs are a balance of heavy firepower, strong armor, and good battlefield mobility provided by tracks and a powerful engine. Usually their main armament is mounted in a turret. They are a mainstay of modern 20th and 21st century ground forces and a key part of combined arms combat. Modern tanks are versatile mobile land weapons platforms whose main armament is a large caliber tank mounted in a rotating gun turret, supplemented by machine guns or other ranged weapons such as anti-tank guided missiles or rocket launchers. They have heavy vehicle armor which provides protection for the crew, the vehicle's munition storage, fuel tank and propulsion systems. The use of tracks rather than wheels provides improved operational mobility which allows the tank to overcome rugged terrain and adverse conditions such as mud and ice /snow better than wheeled vehicles, and thus be more flexibly positioned at advantageous locations on the battlefield. These features enable the tank to perform well in a variety of intense combat situations, simultaneously but offensively, with direct fire from their powerful main gun, and defensively, as fire support and defilade for friendly troops due to the near invulnerability to common infantry small arms and good resistance against heavier weapons. Although anti-tank weapons used in 2022, some of them man-portable, have demonstrated the ability to destroy older generations of tanks with single shots, one or while maintaining the mobility needed to exploit changing tactical situations. 2. Fully integrating tanks into modern military forces spawned a new era of combat, armored warfare. Until the arrival of the main battle tank, tanks were typically categorized either by weight class, light, medium, heavy or super heavy tanks, or doctrinal purpose, breakthrough, cavalry, infantry, cruiser, or reconnaissance tanks. Some being larger and very heavily armored and with large guns, while others are smaller, lightly armored, and equipped with a smaller caliber and lighter gun. These smaller tanks move over terrain with speed and agility and can perform a reconnaissance role in addition to engaging enemy targets. The smaller, faster tank would not normally engage in battle with a larger, heavily armored tank except during a surprise flanking maneuver. A Leopard 2A7 tank in Germany. Etymology. The word tank was first applied to the British land ships in 1915, before they entered service, to keep their nature secret. Origins. On the 24th of December, 1915, a meeting took place of the Interdepartmental Conference, including representatives of the Director of Naval Construction's Committee, the Admiralty, the Ministry of Munitions and the War Office. Its purpose was to discuss the progress of the plans for what were described as Caterpillar machine gun destroyers or land cruisers. In his autobiography, Albert Gerald Stern, Secretary to the Landship Committee, later head of the Mechanical Warfare Supply Department, says that at that meeting Mr. Thomas J. McNamara, MP, and Parliamentary and Financial Secretary to the Admiralty, then suggested, for secrecy's sake, to change the title of the Landship Committee. Mr. D'Eyncourt agreed that it was very desirable to retain secrecy by all means, and proposed to refer to the vessel as a water carrier. In government offices, committees and departments are always known by their initials. For this reason I, as secretary, considered the proposed title totally unsuitable. In our search for a synonymous term, we changed the word water carrier to tank and became the Tank Supply or TS Committee. That is how the Soyapans came to be called tanks. He incorrectly added, and the name has now been adopted by all countries in the world. 4. Colonel Ernest Swinton, who was secretary to the meeting, says that he was instructed to find a non-committal word when writing his report of the proceedings. In the evening he discussed it with a fellow officer, Lt. Col. Walter Daly Jones, and they chose the word tank. That night, in the draft report of the conference, the word tank was employed in its new sense for the first time. 5. Swinton's notes on the employment of tanks, in which he uses the word throughout, was published in January 1916. In July 1918, Popular Science Monthly reported because a fellow of the Royal Historical Society has unintentionally misled the British public as to the origin of the famous tanks, Sir William Triton, who designed and built them, has published the real story of their name. Since it was obviously inadvisable to herald Little Willie's reason for existence to the world, he was known as the Instructional Demonstration Unit. Little Willie's hull was called in the shop orders a water carrier for Mesopotamia. No one knew that the hull was intended to be mounted on a truck. Naturally, the water carrier began to be called a tank. So the name came to be used by managers and foremen of the shop. Until now it has a place in the army vocabulary and will probably be so known in history for all time. 6. D'Eyncourt's account differs from Swinton's and Triton's. When the future arrangements were under discussion for transporting the first land ships to France, a question arose as to how, from a security point of view, the consignment should be labeled. To justify their size we decided to call them water carriers for Russia, the idea being that they should be taken for some new method of taking water to forward troops in the battle areas. Lt. Col. Swinton raised a humorous objection to this, remarking that the War Office pundits would probably contract the description to W.CS for Russia, and that we had better forestall this by merely labeling the packages tanks. So tanks they became, and tanks they have remained. 7. This appears to be an imperfect recollection. He says that the name problem arose when we shipped the first 2 vehicles to France the following year, August 1916, but by that time the name tank had been in use for 8 months. The tanks were labeled with care to Petrograd, but the belief was encouraged that they were a type of snowplow. International. A Japanese Type 10 firing. The term tank is used throughout the English-speaking world, but other countries use different terminology. In France, the second country to use tanks in battle, The word tank or tank was adopted initially, but was then, largely at the insistence of Colonel J.B.E.Stn, rejected in favor of char d'assaut, assault vehicle, or simply char vehicle. During World War I, German sources tended to refer to British tanks as tanks, 8, 9, and to their own as Kampfwagen. 10. Later, tanks became referred to as Panzer, lit armor, a shortened form of the full term Panzerkampfwagen, literally armored fighting vehicle. In the Arab world, tanks are called Daerba, after a type of siege engine. In Italian, a tank is a carro armato, lit. Armed wagon, without reference to its armor. Norway uses the term stridsvagn and Sweden the similar stridsvagn, lit battle wagon, also used for chariots, whereas Denmark uses kampvogn, lit fight wagon. Finland uses panzerivagn, armored wagon, although tanki is also used colloquially. The Polish name czołg, derived from verb czołgiksi, to crawl, is used, depicting the way of machine's movement and its speed. In Hungarian the tank is called harkoksi, combat wagon, albeit tank is also common. In Japanese, the term zensha, lit. Battle vehicle, is taken from Chinese and used, and this term is likewise borrowed into Korean as jiancha, / more recent Chinese literature uses the English-derived TNK, tank, as opposed to ZHA with grave NCH, battle vehicle, used in earlier days. Development overview. The modern tank is the result of a century of development from the first primitive armored vehicles, due to our improvements in technology such as the internal combustion engine, which allowed the rapid movement of heavy armored vehicles. As a result of these advances, tanks underwent tremendous shifts in capability in the years since their first appearance. Tanks in World War I were developed separately and simultaneously by Great Britain and France as a means to break the deadlock of trench warfare on the Western Front. The first British prototype, nicknamed Little Willie, was constructed at William Foster and Company in Lincoln, England in 1915, with leading roles played by Major Walter Gordon Wilson, who designed the gearbox and hull, and by William Tritton of William Foster and Company, who designed the track plates. 11. This was a prototype of a new design that would become the British Army's Mark I tank, the first tank used in combat in September 1916 during the Battle of the Somme. 11. The name tank was adopted by the British during the early stages of their development, as a security measure to conceal their purpose. See etymology. While the British and French built thousands of tanks in World War I, Germany was unconvinced of the tank's potential, and did not have enough resources. Thus it built only 20. Tanks of the interwar period evolved into the much larger and more powerful designs of World War II. Important new concepts of armored warfare were developed. The Soviet Union launched the first mass tank forward/air attack at Kharkhin-Gol, Nomonhan, in August 1939, 12, and later developed the T-34, one of the predecessors of the main battle tank. Less than 2 weeks later, Germany began their large-scale armored campaigns that would become known as Blitzkrieg, Lightning War, massed concentrations of tanks combined with motorized and mechanized infantry, artillery and air power designed to break through the enemy front and collapse enemy resistance. The widespread introduction of high-explosive anti-tank warheads during the second half of World War I allowed to lightweight infantry carried anti-tank weapons such as the Panzerfaust, which could destroy some types of tanks. Tanks in the Cold War were designed with these weapons in mind, and led to greatly improved armor types during the 1960s, especially composite armor. Improved engines, transmissions and suspensions allowed tanks of this period to grow larger. Aspects of gun technology changed significantly as well, with advances in shell design and aiming technology. During the Cold War, The main battle tank concept arose and became a key component of modern armies. 13. In the 21st century, with the increasing role of asymmetrical warfare and the end of the Cold